Why don't we call the meeting to order? Is a gathering of our land use agencies. We used to do this periodically, actually before. So thank you all for coming out on another night. Some of you, I know Chris has a lot of nights out. We have a couple special guests here tonight. But one of the things I thought we would do, we're gonna hear from two folks in a presentation style. Chris will go over the agenda a little bit. But I thought maybe the best thing we can do right now is go around the room and introduce ourselves. Karen's over there.
I'm Karen, I'm the clerk.
And our land use technician in the
Oh,
office, just working part-time in the office.
Chris Costa, of course.
I'm Brian Curtis with Jacobson Associates for engineers for the town.
Michael Bender, member of the planning commission and economic development.
Yeah, Andre Ferrier, chairman of the architectural review board.
Kathy Sutherland, planning commission.
Spike Low, chair of the conservation commission.
Rob Harriman, senior transportation planner at River Code.
I'm Michael Adelin. I'm one of the consultants with River Cotton.
Mark Caldarella, chair of zoning.
Eric Cosenza, member of the economic development commission.
Jennifer Donahue, Economic Development Director for the town.
Yes.
And then I'll do that zoning.
Jerry Lewis, vice chair of zoning.
Mike Kelly, alternate zoning.
Elizabeth Steffen, alternate on inland wetlands, and the other one is at the same time.
Carl Fortuna for selectman.
Paula Kay, Planning Commission.
Doug McCracken, vice chair, planning commission. And Nick Priebus, chair of planning.
Chris, and online, Kevin Danby is on there from ZBA. Who else?
Megan Juplis.
Megan Juflis, that's right, from River Cog. Who else, Chris? Or Karen?
I have for
Brenda Dyson.
Brenda Dyson.
Brenda's on there. She's promoted. Miranda Zing and Bernard Lee, they're from WSP Consulting. For the attendees, I don't know if anybody can sort of raise their hand. Nina, right?
What? No. So,
Oh, right, we have one, who else?
so I was at the, who else?
You can just introduce yourself online. Some of them are just phone numbers.
Whoever raised their hand, if you could introduce yourself.
Chubb Wilcox, ZBA.
All right.
Marcia Wilcox, IWWC.
Anyone else online? Representing a commission?
Okay, they can jump next anyway. So,
And was raised.
what was that?
Oh, the iPod.
Talk in our background.
So, couple things, there's an election in 2 weeks. And good luck to everybody who is running for an office. Obviously, some folks may or may not be elected again. We thank you for your service. But good luck to those folks who are running for re-election. We also have a couple people who have been serving for a very long time on boards and commissions. And I'll recognize first one who's in the room, of course, Kathy Sutherland. So Kathy, how long have you been on?
14 years.
14 years on planning. And this is it for you?
This is it for me.
And then we'll get you back in about 2 years, right?
Yeah.
After you take a little break, it's the same old thing. We should get back.
I'll be back.
But I remember serving on the Board of Finance with your dad.
Right.
Who was a great man, loved being around with. So thank you. So obviously volunteerism and giving back to the community runs in your family, and we thank you for that.
Thank you. Yes.
Is there,
It's been my pleasure
good,
to get back to the community.
yeah, thank you for all you've done. So, And then, Bob Friedman, is Bob on?
He told me he was gonna be here
Yeah,
tonight,
So Bob has served only about 30 years or so, so I don't know if we should talk about it.
years, he did as an alternate
Yeah,
for the
so-
Wetlands Commission.
When I first got elected in 2011, or shortly thereafter, Bob came into my office and said, you know, you better start getting people in here that are younger to replace me. And that was 14 years ago, and he doubled his tenure in that time. And Bob has just been a champion for the regulatory environment in this town and fairly enforcing it. And so, Bob's service to the community really has been immeasurable. And his knowledge is probably unsurpassed, with the zoning regs. So, we thank Bob Friedman for his service. And, Bill Childress on the HDC, is up for appointment, no longer chooses to run on that commission either. And Bill served on, not only Historic District Commission, but what else? Anything?
He was in Charter Revision.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna mention, Charter Revision. Bill was chair of the Charter Revision in 2013 or 14. And we also thank, of course, Bill for his service. Is there anybody else that we need to introduce before we jump into the agenda on there?
The attendees.
It looks like a few more people have jumped on, but. So anyway, thank you all. We'll have a nice discussion tonight. And I'm gonna turn it over to Chris to control the agenda at this point.
Okay, thank you. So, tonight we have several speakers. I think I probably put too much on the agenda. And I was planning to do a PowerPoint presentation on the Housing Task Force, their survey. I'm gonna give you a quick rundown just for time. We do have WSP and the River Cog Safe Streets for all presentations. And then typically we do a little roundtable at the end, so that we're not here for 3 hours. And you see me at your meetings regularly. I'd just like to tell you that the Housing Task Force concluded their housing survey. It is online. That ended on October 1st. We had, was 180 participants. 85% of those were year round, 74% over the age of 50, 24% living north of 95. Some of the takeaways, with housing costs, 24% could not find that housing in Old Saybrook was in their budget. And 31% of the participants paid more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. I mean, nothing really surprising. The survey has amenities desired, 3 bedrooms, outdoor space, walkable location. 65% of those who participated said they did not support an increase in density, but they did support increasing density in all parts of town. This is really consolidated. There's a lot of questions in this, so I encourage you to go on the Planning Commission Housing Task Force page. You can review the full survey, particularly planning and zoning. We could talk about this if there are regular meetings. 69% of those said that multifamily homes should be spread throughout town, and 78% said apartment buildings and multifamily homes should be less than 2.5 stories. The main reason, or the highest vote, as far as why there's a lack of housing option in Old Saybrook, was that there was a lack of reasonably priced homes and that we needed alternatives to single family homes. There are many more categories, but this is the quick rundown. Please take a look at the website. The preferred housing preferences out of the survey were duplexes and 3-family townhouse style homes. There's a lot of information in the survey, so please take a look at. I'm gonna pass this on to our presenters. So our first presenter is Miranda Zhang and Bernard Lee from WSP, as well as Brian Curtis, who is from our engineer's office, Nathan L. Jacobs and Associates. As you're aware, the town just obtained a grant for approximately $97,000 that grant is to look at the B1 district, Main Street. And I'm gonna call it the triangle of B2, the Stage Road Triangle over by the train station to analyze parking, soils, and also to take a look at our mixed-use zoning regulations for housing, because they've been on the books for a while and people really haven't taken advantage of it. So I think at this point, I'm going to introduce Miranda. I'd also like to point out that Megan Juplis, who is on the planning commission and works for Rivercog. Rivercog is going to be our partner on this as far as public participation and outreach. So with that, I guess I'll turn this over to Miranda.
Great. Just checking audio, can, everybody hear me okay?
Yep, yep.
Great. So I'm gonna share my slide on the screen.
We gotta turn it up, Miranda. Give us a second here.
Okay.
Little muffled on your end, maybe.
I'm gonna turn off my camera, see if that will help with the connection. Screen sharing and audio, both, everything.
Miranda, your audio is not great on your end. I think it's on your end. And
Yeah, so it's on high on our end.
Might have to move closer to.
I think Bernard, can you talk and see if the audio connection is better on our side?
It is a little hard to hear you from my end too.
yours is definitely better, Bernard.
Okay, how about this? I can share screen and Bernard can present the slides.
All right.
Okay.
Anybody who wants to move closer, please move closer.
Yeah, Bernard, just let me know when to flip.
All right, I will. Yeah, can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
All right, so we want to give you an overview of this project, talk to the study goals, our scope and work plan and next steps, and then after we go through a few slides, we'll open it up to Q&A and discussion. Next slide. So starting off with the study goals, really, we want to look at what the barriers are to housing creation in the B1 district, and there's 12 properties in the B2, B4 district, with the focus on parking and also the septic capacity analysis. So kind of marrying those two, we want to be able to identify up to 10 properties that we believe have the highest potential to support mixed use apartments in this study area. And the map on the right, that black outline is the study area that we're talking about. And then we will ultimately recommend any potential changes to zoning code or tools that might help encourage the provision of more residential in this area. And we would utilize test fits on these sites to inform our recommendations. Next slide. So just talking through our scope and work plan. So there's three main tasks in our scope that we are currently envisioning will run until May of next year. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that was just a table moving.
Okay. So, we're just getting this underway here in mid-October. And so starting on task one, really we need to understand what the existing conditions, in the study area look like. So on the looking at the current parking conditions, understanding what the parking supply looks like, as well as current parking utilization. So we plan to collect parking to perform parking occupancy counts on a weekday and a Saturday. And we are planning to do this sometime in the next month or so before the holiday season starts. We recognize that this is not kind of peak season, summertime, when there are a lot more people in town. So, I think we're going to have to look for ways to make some adjustments to what we observe, to reflect sort of a typical busy time that you might see in the summertime. We also are going to review the existing policies as it relates to provision of mixed-use apartments in the study area. So understanding, kind of how so parking regulations in particular sort of might impact, whether owners want to build new housing. And we also plan to interview up to 5 property owners in the study area to understand, sort of what their perspective is on building new housing, and I think really to understand why the current policies and regulations haven't resulted in a lot of housing being created in the study area. So once we have an understanding of the existing conditions, and actually I should mention too that NLJA will be doing their septic capacity analysis sort of in parallel during this time. And so that will feed into task 2 along with the parking conditions, where we're looking at, really what are up to 10 properties that we think, make the most sense for building at least one, mixed use apartment unit. So kind of using both the parking availability and the septic capacity as filters for that. And on the parking side, considering also are there opportunities to share parking across properties, so that maybe abutting property owners may figure out a way to provide mixed use apartment by utilizing parking on their neighbor's property, as an example. So once we've identified these priority sites, we'll perform test fits on these sites to kind of examine, how the kind of the layout of the site will look, to account for any parking needs, as well as the septic capacity requirements. And we'll then also prepare recommendations based on the results of these test fits that we perform. And so our recommendations, could include things like updates to the current zoning regulations, development of tools that may help the property owners in the study area with kind of moving forward on providing mixed use apartments as examples. Next slide, please. So just kind of wrapping up as far as next steps. As I mentioned, we just got started on this project, and so we will conduct a project kickoff meeting in the very near future. We will also be preparing data requests and reviewing any data that is already available from the town. And also we want to be performing the parking occupancy counts before the holiday season. And so that opened up to any questions or comments that anyone has.
So just to add to what Bernard's saying, the planning commission serves as the housing task force, as well as a member of Fenwick and Bob Friedman representing the zoning commission. So the affordable housing plan had tasks, the housing task force is kind of looking at, the next plan is a housing plan. And this is one of the tasks or part of the task. It's a little bit different than the action plan. But this would allow us to take a look at the zoning regulations, particularly the amendment that the zoning commission made several years ago, as to why people aren't taking advantage of this. I know that Bernard went through his presentation, but I know Brian wants to talk a little bit about his role from the engineering portion of it.
Sure.
This is Brian from Nathan L. Jacob.
Yep, thank you, Chris. Yeah, our element of the study will be looking basically at sewage disposal capacity, septic system capacity in the B1 and B2 zone, these properties that are selected. As most of you know, the main factors that determine septic system capacity are soil types, the seepage rate, whether it's fast or slow, primarily depth to groundwater, and also how much area is available on the property for a leach field system. The things that affect the area available are health code setback requirements, separation distances to watercourses and wetlands, setbacks to buildings, that kind of boxes in an area on any particular parcel where you can provide a septic system. So for both of these zones, we'll be looking at an overlay of the entire zones, B1 and B2, soil types, wetlands, floodplains, things of that nature that would affect suitability for septic systems. And also outlining criteria for septic system sizing. For example, bedrooms are 150 gallons per bedroom. Commercial properties are 20 gallons per employee for an office, for example. Restaurants, 35 gallons per seat, things like that would give you an idea of how big of a septic system flow capacity would be for various uses. The health code is going under a change currently. Previously, the flow capacity for health department septic systems was 5,000 gallons a day. A few years ago, the legislature changed it to 7,500 gallons a day. And then a couple of years ago, they changed it to 10,000 gallons a day. It's getting to be very large systems regulated under the public health code. Before, anything over 5,000 gallons a day went to DEP, and they have more stringent criteria, having to look at a lot of other pollutant renovation issues. But the health department capacity going up to 10,000 gallons a day, that's a very large design flow that would accommodate, almost 70 bedrooms, or, a 100-seat restaurant would be 5,000 gallons a day. So it's a real expansion of what can be done through the local health department. So on these properties, we'll probably be zeroing in on the larger parcels that have the greatest potential for mixed use, commercial and residential, and providing ideas of what the septic capacity on these particular properties looks like, whether it's small, medium, or large scale capacity. And I would think we're dealing with all of these probably under the health code jurisdiction, not DEP systems that would be anything over 10,000 gallons a day. You just would need a very large property to accommodate that. The health code also recently changed where they would allow community systems on a particular property where you could have more than one building connected to a common system. That's a change for residential uses on a property. Previously, they did not allow common systems for residential use for multiple buildings. Now they do. And they would also be looking at potentially off-site systems where you might have a use on one property, you could have a septic system on another property, things like that. So we'll be basically focusing on those elements of the B1 and B2 zone and try to give an idea of how many bedrooms, how many commercial gallons per day, you might be able to accommodate on these various properties.
So, I'm just gonna comment, what is exciting about this project, number one, is if we went to the Board of Selectmen, Board of Finance and town meeting and said, hey, we need $100,000 to do some soil testing and a parking examination on Main Street. It wouldn't happen. There's no way you're gonna get that money for just like, hey, let's see if we can maybe do something to amend the zoning regulations in the hopes that maybe someone will build some apartments. And I wanna give a lot of credit to Chris and her department about getting this grant. This is a grant that came from DOH that we're not matching any money for. And the money was wired to us already. We have it. And so we're not even spending and then seeking reimbursement. Those grants we have to go to town meeting for. So this is just a really neat project to see if we can put more feet on Main Street and get people living downtown. And it's all about the vibrancy of our Main Street. I don't think we have a problem with, we want kids in the school system. We don't have enough. And those apartments on North Main didn't affect the school system, not one bit. That was the one question I had. How is this gonna affect our school system? I said, I hope it brings kids, and it really hasn't. So this is a really neat project that we look forward to, and we literally yesterday kind of signed the contract essentially. So it's really brand new, and that's why you see kickoff meeting is commencing shortly. So, any questions or comments for Chris on
So
this?
just one comment, we do have consultants involved, obviously. They're saying we wouldn't necessarily put this soils analysis and things together in a meeting, but it's important for particularly planning and zoning, as well as everybody, to feel involved and to be involved and to comment, because this is gonna end up being, this is your plan. So even though you're not out there doing soils analysis or parking counts, your feedback is important. And in my discussions with Miranda and Bernard and Megan, we thought it would make sense to get you involved in this project as well as the SS4 project now, because these plans are going to impact potentially what happens on Main Street and in other areas of town and so here. So any comments you have for Bernard or Miranda or myself or in general, this is probably a good time to start, and we want you to be involved from the start because this is your plan. It's your town. I don't know if anybody has any comments online or in person.
Yeah, I have a question for Bernard. You indicated you were gonna identify 10 properties. If you had, say, 4 small properties that could be combined, does that count as 4 or does that count as 1? Could it be like 10 locations? And a location may consist of multiple properties?
Yeah, I think we're really thinking about it from that standpoint.
Okay, thank you. And a quick question for Brian, you talked about 10,000 gallons per day, the limits keep going up. Does that include the, in addition to that, is there a reserve leaching field requirement?
Yeah, currently
That
the
cuts
health,
into the space needed?
yes, the health code currently requires for a brand new project or a change in use, they require 100% reserve area. The only time they don't require it is in a repair scenario. You can repair a system and not have to have a reserve set aside area, but for anything new or change of use, anything proposed, you require a primary and a reserve area. So some of these, the health code has introduced many products compared to years ago that have a very high application rate compared to conventional trenches or gallery systems. So if you have, permeable soils and deep groundwater, some of these systems are very compact in terms of their gallon per day capacity. So that's been a big change over the past 10 years or so. So the reserve area would be required as well as a primary area.
Yeah, it seems like a constraint, you know,
Yes,
in these tight areas.
And I know from my past that deep is finally maybe coming into the 21st century. Because they've been stuck, I think in reverse for a very long time. And in fact, that 150 gallon a day is, I think, very high per bedroom.
yes, and even on the health code, when you get into multifamily situations, they do allow that to, when you get over, say, a certain amount, 4 or 5 bedrooms, gets into multiple bedrooms, they do allow you to reduce the gallons per day for the added bedrooms.
Because if you look at
That
water
could be changed.
usage, it's rarely 100.
Yeah, you know, people actually use about 60 gallons
Yeah.
a day, so,
So there, it's possible you could get some flexibility out of deep on some of these. We've talked to them about it on our WPCA project.
Yeah.
So.
So one question I had, I guess, are we looking to figure out how to put like the most number of bedrooms on a property? Are we looking to find out why we're not, I guess, using the zoning regulations that allow for sort of smaller, because I think some of these people like 1 or 2 apartments on there, which is not a huge amount, but if we get 1 to 2 on every property, that adds up. Or are we trying to find which property can we put like 50 on, I guess?
I think we're taking a look at all of it.
Little bit, okay.
So I mean, the zoning commission put the regulations in place 5 years ago. And we've only had a handful of property owners that have taken advantage of it. So, is it because of soils? Is it, there's not enough parking to balance, the retail, office, restaurant uses in the same property and have apartments? It could just be that property owners are not interested. So this will help us to identify and learn a little bit more, and maybe there's ways that the housing task force, planning and zoning commissions can work together to improve those regulations, to encourage more, or housing task force can learn and maybe create some incentives for property owners to do this. So kind of looking at everything.
I think a little bit of the idea is to identify opportunities, and then what's neat about this grant is, let's say we identify a few good opportunities. Number one, the town has been proactive in putting some money aside for housing, diverse housing. And we've also joined it's not municipal redevelopment agency anymore, it's a better name than that, I'm forgetting.
CMDA.
CMDA, where there's the potential to, at a later point, so if we identify commercial property owner A and say, hey, you know what, you might be able to get 5 to 7 units if you were to build above this, you have septic capacity, maybe the town can assist with CMDA to help make that happen. And I think that's a position we're ultimately aiming for, with, maybe with something a little bit bigger.
Yeah, was it like the survey where I think some people want to know this, the smaller scale versus like bigger scale?
Yeah. Well, I don't know that there's anything large scale to do.
Oh, yeah.
Certainly, but I agree wholeheartedly with you. If we can get 2 to 5 here and there.
Yeah.
That would be incredible.
So maybe we got 50 properties, you put 2 on these, that's 100 more units, and we haven't really increased the footprint of any building. That's a big win for the town.
Speaking to Chris, but we isolate, say, 10 properties, and it meets the requirements for public health. I think one of the things that will get overlooked that we would need to seriously consider, or how we would help property owners, but if they're single-story properties and they want to add a second story, but structurally they have issues, what can we do between zoning and planning in the town to help them achieve that goal to increase housing? Because there's probably more than we would realize at least on Main Street, that are in that type of situation because of the age of the building, and the structure. It would have to be, improved upon in order to support a second story. So I think from, our consultant's perspective, that also should be taken into some conversation. I would assume that you would, when you identify the 10 properties, that you might involve the, property owners into that conversation. And that might be something that would come up from that discussion as well.
One comment too, not to pick on Jennifer, our economic development director, but we were talking, you know, how changing these buildings too would impact the feel of Main Street. You know, we've kind of got that historic look, so that's another, you know, thing I think we're gonna have to think about. You know, we don't wanna tear down historic buildings and put 4-story apartments. You know, how do you make that balance to get feet on the street, but keep Main Street the attraction that it currently is?
I have a question. In regards to like ADA access, do you have to put elevators into these properties? Or we won't be necessary? I'm just questioning.
I think it depends on the number of units, but I
Units and
don't
floors,
think,
right?
Building code, yeah, whatever the building code is. Right?
but I mean, I don't think they're gonna be forced to do elevators because we have 186 units on North Main Street. The first floor units are accessible.
But
But
these
there
are
are no,
first floor units, these are second floor.
well, there could be first floor units.
Okay.
The zoning regs designed that pretty much you keep the storefront on Main Street, a storefront or an office. However, there could be an opportunity to go behind a storefront, you know, particularly corner lots, where the Essence building is, you know,
Right.
on Coulter, and behind there, there's actually, that was one of the properties, they put apartments above and then they have an apartment in the back.
Yeah.
So sometimes it could be used for, you know, underutilized, you know, keep that retail, commercial office storefront, but maybe we don't need as much retail as space as we used to, and then supplement that for a landlord by having a first floor unit into the rear of the property.
So, to your last comment, will the analysis for the properties, I assume it's going to primarily look at opportunities based on maintaining the existing or adding to the existing building footprints, or potentially going up or out, rather than like a clean development of the property? Is that?
I don't know.
I think we're looking at everything.
Oh,
So,
okay.
So it's gonna be economically feasible for a building owner, and, you know, I think it's gonna be interesting to find out when these folks are interviewed, like, why haven't you done it? Does this make a difference to you that you have, do you know you have septic capacity if you wanted to add 3 apartments? You know, I don't know. I mean, you know, it's, you know, maybe the person then says, well, I can't fill my business space, maybe I'll make a small apartment building. And
Well, and just, I think, if they're looking at opportunities, if we include the option of completely rebuilding, then there's a lot more opportunity, because you can reconfigure everything on the lot, so you can potentially fit more parking, you can potentially do things differently, so that maybe opens up opportunities, but also, to Chris's point, I think there are a lot of buildings that probably will stay and should stay on.
agree.
Maybe this jumps ahead a little bit, but nobody has touched upon maybe going in the direction of encouraging, or how we could encourage new changes to existing buildings, or when we talk about rebuilding you know, reconstructing the building, doing it as a historically authentic building. Now, of course, I mean, knowing in the background there are historical credits, but maybe some thought might be given to how is there something there that we could come up with, or incentives, or anyway, it's just a direction that we've never talked about, except that I think that maybe that would be an interesting direction, given that we, Old Saybrook, are in the tourism business, and we're in the charm business and so that would be,
That would, I think, fall to ARB to zoning, you know, probably to, if you're building on Main Street, it better fit within what the residents wanna see on Main Street, not a cement block, right?
well, but even more so, I mean, genuine, maybe historical, you know,
I mean-
maybe an incentive or something, okay, so, but that's part of my thought process.
But I think we need just to go through this basic analysis now and
Yeah,
then
right.
find out and then make those decisions and planning and housing task force
Right,
zoning.
I just throw it out there.
I don't know if there's anybody online who'd like to speak.
Friedman, we did recognize you earlier for all your years of service. Bob,
Talk loud.
okay, we recognized you earlier for all your years of service.
Oh,
So thank you.
Just keep plodding along.
This just makes sure.
So Bernard, do you have any additional slides, comments, things you want to discuss? Miranda? I know we can't hear you, but we know you're there.
No, I don't think we have anything else. I mean, looking forward to getting started on this. It's exciting for us, for both Miranda and I, to be working on this. So look forward to working with the town on this effort.
Okay, good. So brand new, I mean, doors open, so it's gonna, you'll all be part of it. We can move on, I guess.
Okay, well, thank you, Bernard, Miranda, Brian, for attending.
Thank you.
You don't have to stay, but you're welcome to. All right, so, our next presentation is, River Cog as the Safe Streets for All SS4A grant. Tonight we have, Michael here to present, Megan's here. Robert, thank you. And Robert from the River Cub SS4T.
All right, so thanks everyone for having us. I'll share my screen so folks online can see as well. There we go. All right, so thanks again for having us. So this is a regional planning effort that's focused on roadway safety. So we're transitioning investment housing. I know that there's a lot of land use experts in the room as well. So if you have any questions about kind of anything I say, definitely stop me. I'll try to keep the presentation brief because really the main purpose and main focus of this presentation is out of all the roadways in the River Cog region, there was a specific roadway, Route 154, between Bochum Road and Essex, that was highlighted as having a lot of safety needs, that we're trying to address and develop a concept plan that could hopefully one day become funded. And this is really the start of a process of really designing a roadway that is safer for all road users. But I do want to provide a little bit of an overview about what this project is, just for the context. There's certainly a lot of moving parts in a regional project like this. And I gather that most of you in the room are perhaps familiar with River Cog, but Rob, did you just want to say a few things from at least the transportation perspective?
Yeah, sure. I'm Rob Harmon, Senior Transportation Planner at RiverCog. We are the regional planning agency and transportation planning agency for the region. The bipartisan infrastructure law is the current federal transportation legislation, and under that legislation, there was a series of discretionary grants that were created that didn't exist before. One of these was the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. There's two main aspects of the program. One is planning grants, one is implementation grants. In order to receive an implementation grant, a planning grant first has to be in place, or plan needs to be in place. So basically, Rivercog had applied for and was awarded a grant back in 2022. We had taken the services of FHI to develop this plan. They have been working on it for probably about 16 months now, and that's Michael, and I will turn it back over to him to tell us where we stand.
Thanks, Rob.
Sure.
Yeah, so, as far as the agenda, we'll go over just what the project is and some of the action plan highlights, but most of our conversation, I'm hoping we can focus on the concept plan, as time allows. So just a quick overview, Safe Streets and Roads for All is an extremely important program. It's relatively new, that came with the latest infrastructure law. The real focus on this is to prevent deaths and serious injuries. You may have seen headlines or news about the uptick in roadway fatalities and serious injuries that has occurred. Unless if anyone is under the age of 5 in this room or online, over the course of our lives, we've actually seen declines in roadway fatalities and serious injuries. It's very unfortunate in the last 5 or so years, we've started to see those rise. So the infrastructure law is very directly trying to improve safety on the roadways to get that number back down again. All right, so when it comes to vision and goals, and a very important part of this is setting a goal to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries on regional roadways. Rivercog and our partners on the committee have decided on 2040, 15 years, to look to eliminate fatalities and serious injuries in the Rivercog region. I will note that limited access highways such as Route 9, I-95, and I-91 are excluded from this study because there is an element pertaining to bicycle and pedestrian use. There's a real emphasis on that, and cyclists and pedestrians are generally not allowed on those roadways or encouraged to be on them. So this is a regional effort, which is really challenging because a lot of roadway safety is really implemented at the local level. So we're really encouraging all municipalities and transportation agencies to really focus on safety initiatives and to really get on board with this goal overall. We're specifically with this program, as Rob kind of mentioned, we're developing an action plan, and from that action plan, we'll be allowed to and will qualify for implementation grant money. And it's quite a large sum of money. This infrastructure law was the largest investment in infrastructure in our nation's history from a dollar value perspective. So it is quite a bit of money. The grants are still very competitive, but positioning yourself for one of these grants through doing one of these action plans, but also specifically projects that tie infrastructure improvements to safety outcomes is a really critical component of all of this. All right, so let's talk about what a comprehensive safety action plan is. I'll just stay at pretty high level because most of this is kind of pertaining to people who deal with transportation on a daily basis. So safe design strongly emphasizes infrastructure improvements, and that's what we'll mostly talk about tonight. But just so you know, in the greater context of this plan, there's also elements like policy and practices, education, enforcement, resources, and ongoing data monitoring, because all of these pertain to roadway safety in various capacities. All right, so we looked at all of the roadways, public roadways in the Rivercog region, so stretching from Cromwell down to here and Old Lyme, and excluding, of course, the limited access roadways, Route 9, I-95, and I-91, and 25 roadway segments emerged as needing a particular importance and attention. Almost all of these, I think all except one, are state roadways. State roadways are more likely to have higher speeds and therefore result in more serious crashes. From there, the grant allowed us to take a special look at 10 locations, and Old Saybrook actually had 3 locations within its jurisdiction. One of those locations, the one we selected, Route 157, is a really good choice, and I'll explain why that is in just a moment, but it actually rated the highest in the Old Saybrook area. All right, so in taking a step back, I looked at, we did do a review of the crash history for every municipality in the region, and pertaining to Old Saybrook's crash history, there's been 8 serious injury crashes between 2019 and 2023, which was the latest data set that we had. most notably, there were 4 locations in Old Saybrook that from a regional perspective were very high from a critical crash rate data point of view. So what critical crash rate does is that it takes into account the number of vehicles that are actually going through an intersection and makes it relative to the crashes that are occurring. And it also takes into account crash severity too. So more serious crashes are weighted more heavily here. So there's 4 locations: Essex Road and 154, Middlesex Turnpike, Bochum Road and 154, US Route 1, Boston Post Road and I-95 entrance, and then Route 154 Main Street from Elm Street to Route 1. So right outside of here. So, well, I'll just note that basically because of these first 2 bullets being such close proximity to each other, that enabled that segment to really be ranked and get the attention that it has on this project. Because there's 2 critical crash rate locations, and there was actually 1 serious injury crash involving a pedestrian. And this grant, as I mentioned, has a real focus on pedestrian side of this as part of it. So it made it a good candidate. It's not good news, but it made it a good candidate for receiving this funding to do some additional planning and emphasis on this. When it comes to thinking about the concept plan, so we're about to switch to that, thinking about areas that have skewed intersection geometry, which this location does, any sort of access management issues, which I'm sure many of you are well versed in, but having those access points to get into businesses and homes, lighting conditions. So the pedestrian involved crash wasn't a low light scenario. So thinking about that, bicycle and pedestrian network gaps, which I understand that there's some bicycle and pedestrian planning happening regionally and locally. And then thinking about critical pedestrian infrastructure near transit stops. There is a parking ride in this section. I'll pull up a map in just a second. All right. Well, actually, before we switch the concepts, does anyone have any questions before I share those about anything I presented on? Some technical stuff, so hopefully we'll get to the kind of the concept plans in a second. So before I switch screens and talk about those, these are draft planning level concepts. I consider us at kind of the early stages of design, not the end of one. So we're coming to you very soon. I think the only people who have seen these have been RiverCog, the Connecticut Department of Transportation as the road owner, as well as Chris and some members of your team as well. So this is very much early level. We're sharing these to get feedback and have a conversation, which can continue after this meeting. So I'll share the documents with Chris if you have need additional time. So further iterations of design will be needed. I don't know how land use and housing works, but transportation, it usually takes many iterations of design to get to the final one. To implement. Yeah.
Step back for 1 second. Can I ask you in general why they think there has been this uptick over the last 5 years?
So one of the reasons, there's a variety of different reasons, but at least during 2020, when there were fewer vehicles on the road, people were driving faster. So that's kind of the #1 culprit for why we started to see that. And driving patterns have certainly changed. So whereas we used to have this peak AM period and a peak PM period, now it's kind of leveled out throughout the day because people are maybe working from home, running some errands midday. So you're seeing some changes over time. The other really big one is distracted driving. So that's something that wasn't as present maybe 20 years ago, and now as phones have gotten smarter and there's been more of a reason, and we even have kind of computers on our dashboard now. Distracted driving plays a role. So those I'd say would be the main ones. All right, and kind of the other and third point I'll make before we switch to these is these are really meant to assist with grant applications. I think this segment could be a very competitive candidate under the SS4A program. It's not the only program for funding. There's state programs, there's others, but there is a documented safety need that needs to be addressed. All right.
When you say this segment, you mean Bochum Road and Essex Road?
Right. So
you mean those 2 intersections as a segment?
As segments stretching, so one, right. 1 second, let me reshare my screen so everyone can see. Sorry about that. So I'll go over what the segment is, so you can visualize it perhaps a little bit better. Okay, so 154, which I think goes by Middlesex Turnpike, I don't know what you usually call it, but so Bochum Road down here, this intersection stretching north across, like, or underneath Route 9 to Essex Road, this intersection here. Zoom in a little bit.
Yes, where La Maria is.
Yes, and the VFW post.
Yeah, right.
You like,
Right, so this intersection is a really challenging one. I'll just point out a few things before I switch to concept plans. Generally speaking, skewed intersections are bad for visibility. They require a certain level of awareness that you don't see in what we would call a teed up intersection. Because certain drivers from certain angles are not going to be able to have the field of view at other locations. So the moment I saw this intersection and saw that it was a critical crash rate location, I saw, you know, there was geometric improvements that could probably help with the safety component here. All right, so scrolling down, we know that there's some access challenges along the roadway. This area, and I don't have the exact, my knowledge is only as good as the data that is documented, but roughly around here is where there was a pedestrian struck. I can't remember the year, but it was in a low light scenario, and it was a serious injury. And then scrolling down to Bochum Road, well, what do you know? We have another skewed intersection here. And these are not uncommon by any means. You know, a lot of the roads in this area are very, very old and not used to kind of the speeds that we now have today. You know, some of them are pre-automobile, so it's common to see these kinds of intersections, and they can be very challenging and cost intensive to fix, which is why federal money is a great thing when it comes to making these improvements. All right, so what are some options for what we can do about it? So we'll start on the northern end and recognize that with transportation, there's a certain amount of phasing, so not all these things have to happen at once. It's great if you can apply for a grant and get everything, but there's certain elements in here pertaining to, for instance, bicycle transportation that could be phased at a later date. Our focus primarily is on reducing the number of crashes at this intersection. So let me start by highlighting kind of the most substantial improvement, which would be teeing up this intersection here.
So that would be Ferry Road
Coming
into 154 and squaring it off.
or this is Essex.
Or,
Essex Road.
Right by La Maria.
Yeah, so La Maria here,
right,
the VFW all
or
the
Essex Road, right, yeah.
Okay, so sometimes you get some good news when you're doing this kind of work. I'm used to working in very, very constrained environments. In this area, actually, there's a pretty wide public right of way. So
Why can't you just put some stoplights?
These
These
are
are
green
great.
stoplights.
I know, but those are bad areas. We all know they're bad areas. We all know people crash there. So, and we know that there's a stop sign and people run right through them, okay? So my question is, rather than spend God knows how much money to move the road, wouldn't it just make sense to put lights in first? I'm just trying to understand.
right,
The cost of moving the road could be $500,000, $1 million. Versus putting lights in. I mean, I don't get it.
Well, actually, I was gonna ask the question, does your research include documenting who in fact is involved in the accidents, like who's driving, I mean,
that's proprietary. Yeah, we don't have access to that data.
okay, my running, person willing to run through the stop sign might not be the, anyway, okay.
So pertaining to signals, certainly, definitely a consideration. To do a signal, you have to have a certain number and meet certain specifications, which we could certainly look into. Signals won't change the geometric issue. So
I know that.
lots
They'll
of
stop
signal.
the car. In theory.
Right, but lots of signalized intersections have very high crash rates.
I know what they do there, I live around there.
Okay, great, no, thanks, yeah, definitely, certainly welcoming feedback, just explaining why we didn't go this way, yeah. So this would, address that geometric consideration still with kind of the visibility element. This location would be, given that it's already a fairly straight area, so taking the VFW highway and having this as the sort of the signalized potential for a new signal, this is one location where.
You know how many crashes occur there? Yeah,
Right.
that's a bad spot. They try shooting across the highway to go up to Route 9,
Yeah.
or you see them, because there's no signal.
Mhm. Yeah, great,
And they
yeah,
get frustrated because the cars keep coming
yeah,
down. So they try shooting out, and that's what ends up happening.
okay, great, yeah.
So that would be signalized?
This one we're proposing to signalize.
Oh, good, because that should have been there like 15 years ago.
Okay, great. I'll note that.
I disagree.
Yeah,
Why not a roundabout?
that's exactly what I was gonna.
A roundabout.
So
Roundabout in both locations.
Yeah.
roundabouts were explored, roundabout does not fit into the public right of way, at this location, so it's certainly something that could be considered. It would just involve, some level of partial property taking.
Right, because I know they just recently did them in Haddam,
Mhm.
and they're excellent.
It's a lot harder to run through it.
I agree. I'd love to see a couple
Yeah.
roundabouts instead
We
of.
have them in Rhode Island, they're not that great. I'm
I
just
think
telling you.
everybody has.
Is it the
mixed
roundabout?
feelings.
Yeah, they do.
Not a roundabout.
They do.
I'm not a roundabout guy, I'm just telling you, they're in Rhode Island, I could show you, I could take you to Carl.
Yeah,
Show you,
no, I've been,
all of them,
I've seen
and
it.
you'll just sit there, that's not Old Saybrook.
Well, yeah,
Yeah, but we'll revisit that, when we took the initial look, we saw that there would be some property impacts for that one, so we were trying to avoid doing that, just because that increases the cost.
Sure.
But yeah, okay, so another element, and I sort of mentioned this, there is a pretty important bicycle pedestrian safety element, so we are looking at different ways that this could be bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure could be integrated into this. And this doesn't have to happen on the initial phase, it could, but Chris and I have spoken about kind of demand for different things, ongoing planning for bicycle and pedestrian infrastructure. The right of way is wide enough that you could include a sidewalk, a bike lane on Route 54, and we do 154, and we do recommend a buffer given the speeds of this location. There would be potential plowing considerations that we would have to keep in mind. I know this was raised as a concern already, but allowing for some sidewalks in this location. And then farther down on VFW, I believe this connects over, back for Essex Road, back to the waterfront. So there is a sort of destination element to this, creating a multi-use path, 10-foot. This would be bi-directional on the northerly side of VFW highway and extending further. I would recommend, if this were something that we're interested or of interest to this committee and others, that we think about it from a more network perspective. This is a very localized planning effort. But like, if this were to be built, it needs to go somewhere, right? So thinking about it more holistically, but throwing that out there as an idea.
This is a pretty popular like regional bike route, people
Yeah.
coming around that
Yeah.
very point, going up to Essex and back.
Very,
Yeah. Sure you know,
Mike and I will be voting for the bike path.
absolutely.
So that's good to know, that there's some support for that, because there's locations on this that we noticed that the shoulder is very narrow.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, that's why we were kind of thinking like, hey, you've got the right of way, the public right of way in this location. You could fit something like 10-foot multi-use path, which is standard.
And if you keep carrying down our VFW, eventually you get to the bridge that goes over Connecticut River, and there's already like a path there and kind of connect into that. Really great.
We did discuss too at the staff level, you have a lot of folks coming off of Route 9, and there's a little bit of a balance because you've got people trailering boats that may not trailer boats every day who are going down to the marinas, and tractor trailers turning to drop off supplies at the shopping center and construction equipment and so forth. So it's, what's that balance? Obviously you want safety, but at the same time, we do have drivers who may not navigate these as well as we
Yeah.
hope.
Certainly. And something that we did notice from looking at the crash data overall is, shoreline communities do see an uptick in summer months in crashes. So it's there is an element of people who are maybe less familiar driving the area. So definitely consideration. All right, so let's keep moving on south. So this is somewhat overlap with what we've already seen. So this is, let me zoom in a little bit. This one is landscape. But here's VFW Highway, kind of just showing a little bit how the bike path continues across Route 9 and then heading down to the New Haven Health Facility at this location. So adding in crosswalks, continuing to think about sidewalks, even if we know that there are pedestrians in this area because the crash history, at least, you may have anecdotal information about that, but we do know that there are pedestrians, at least here, so we need to start thinking about them. Even if, the development's not there yet, or, if there are planned developments kind of in this area, just making that sort of a consideration, as those developments start to occur, there might be pedestrian demand. All right, so adding some turn pockets, let me just get back to the existing. So as you can see, there's one lane in each direction. We're proposing from just a safety and reduction and kind of the stop and go-ness of this location, some turn pockets at some of these access points.
What's a turn pocket?
So when you're here, let me zoom in, it's just easier to show. Let's see. So here's like a left turn pocket. So actually having like a turn lane.
Gotcha.
A right turn lane we didn't see as necessary, but here's kind of a two-way. In locations where there's access points on either side, you need to have two-way center.
When you go up Route 66, as you're heading to Middlefield, you see a lot of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, and when you don't have them, and, if you see someone, if it's a single lane and you have a super wide shoulder, when you don't have them, person stops to make a left turn and then the people behind them start to use that shoulder to get around.
Yeah.
That's concerning in areas with pedestrians, or cyclists who are maybe using that shoulder. Also, if there's perhaps someone stopping to let someone cross.
Right.
The people going around into the shoulder may not see it and the pedestrian may not be expecting. So that's kind of where it becomes a little bit of concern, and that's why we started to think about the future of this area and really where we put them in. Also, just generally helps with turning vehicles, getting them out of the through movement. I'm not sure if there's congestion in this area, but our engineers did take a look at it and it seems.
I think it's a great idea here.
Yes.
There's congestion on like Saturday morning, train station opens.
Okay. Let me just find the presenter and note taker today.
Yeah.
And also Bochum Road, when people are taking a left onto Bochum Road heading out of town,
Yeah.
you're taking up the entire lane and the shoulder. So I don't know if you remodel that, if there's enough room for a turn pocket.
Yes, there is. And so again, this is a very fortunate area where the right of way is fairly wide, so it allows for a turn pocket without any property impacts. I think I just invented a new tongue twister there, but yeah. And so the other kind of thing to note in this area, so this is this green color here is the current alignment. I'm not exactly how this developed. I've heard that carriage roads often had kind of these splits here, historically speaking. I don't know exactly why, but kind of consolidating this, this one right here to tee up the intersection would require property impact, but this is actually state property. This is where the Connecticut Department of Transportation's parking right is.
So the one comment that I had, but this was identified as, it's kind of a pretty pathetic parking right. Right now, it's got all contractors,
Right.
staging area, and
Especially when we have the transit stuff down by
so
the
that
train
would be
station.
something we would want to see improved.
Right.
how often it's used as a parking lot.
But I would think that's gonna get people trying to turn. Left onto 154.
Left here,
Yeah.
okay.
You could do the same thing, just a few feet up in Tractor Supply.
Mhm.
That's another place where people go up onto the shoulder.
Yep.
To get around.
Let me just make sure I get what you're talking about.
Off the block of road.
Oh, right to turn left.
I can see that.
You're saying south of
Yes.
Slocum Road where the, let's see, track there.
Just right there, yeah, right there. That's another.
It's narrow there.
In
That's
that
a good
area.
choke point.
Yeah.
All right, yeah, so. So regarding the previous comment, you're saying there's people turning off of Bochum Road
Go left.
to go left here.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, this is something that can probably be accommodated, if we're,
That's one of the benefits of that little split.
right, I see. Okay,
I mean, that,
Traffic going in and stuff.
why isn't
Yeah.
that more squared off? That's like not squared
it
off.
could be, it definitely could be, but you would have to cut further into the property, and we were trying to avoid what looked like was at least developed. Not developed, but you know, parking areas. Right now, it cuts into landscaping, but it could be extended further
No, but I'm talking about,
here,
you're showing the old road.
right here.
Yeah, why can't you square that,
Right.
just square it up more?
It would require, you could, it would require a sharper turn, and the turning movements that we've done here are for. Like larger trucks. Cause that's something that we need to take into account.
Yeah, there's a Eversource substation down there.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
But that, I mean, that road, that was supposed to go like 25 mile an hour, so anything that makes it easier to drive fast is only gonna make people drive faster.
So yeah, I was gonna say, if the truck has come down here, that can't make a left turn
Mhm.
there on 154, they didn't come down Bochum Road.
Gotcha.
Because Bochum Road's like this.
Yeah.
I know you have scope control, we could just keep it.
Yeah, right.
No, good, I'm here to listen, I'm here.
But in between Bochum and Essex Road is the transfer station. And everybody knows, there's a line pulling in there and everybody's speeding past. That'd be a great place for a center
I mean, you're
lane.
basically talking about just why.
The whole center road, the whole
Yeah.
piece from town. All the way out.
Transfer station is
Three
supposed to
lanes.
be
Okay.
popular place.
You're right.
Let's pull it up, let's see.
Well,
Right, yeah, halfway.
basically from the auto mall
Here we go.
to Middlesex.
Right.
Yeah.
Probably could do it.
Yeah. Right.
Really,
Yeah.
what we're talking about.
This location right here.
Question, on the easement factor, is there a water company facility there also? If you go back to the overhead, it's just a, yeah.
Oh, like Bockham.
Oh, yeah.
Local road.
Yeah, Bochum Road, yeah.
Oh, both,
There's like a pump there.
right,
Sure you work around that.
Keep going, yeah, no.
Yeah.
is it up the road?
No, it's right at the corner.
It's right here.
It's on the,
Tractor Supply.
It's right next to the, park and rec.
So somewhere,
Kind of right where.
I don't know if you can see my cursor.
Yeah.
I think it's near the B in Bochum.
Yeah.
Right here.
Yeah, that's it.
Just take a screenshot.
Like somewhere in there.
It's. Somewhere around here, I see some hydrants.
Yeah, I think it's, yeah, right in that area.
Yeah, there's
There's the hydrant.
there's a hydrant, but I thought.
There's more there.
There's more there now than when
Yeah.
this was.
When this was taken?
Yeah.
Okay,
There's an elevation problem there as well, because if you're on Balcom Road heading to 154, you're going up a hill. And a abrupt hill to get up onto the
further up,
proper travel lane.
okay. Yeah, so I guess people are kind of coming down here and they hit this intersection. Okay, got it. All right, oh, well, here we see some
Yeah,
utilities,
right.
got it.
That too.
Yeah, no, that's an important consideration, because moving utilities is not it's not easy,
you
and,
know.
yeah. Right, any other thoughts here? Keep them coming, I don't, I'm here to listen.
Yeah, I would say, looking, there's an auto mall before the Tractor Supply, okay, so. I think what you're hearing in this room is from the road narrows at that point.
Mhm.
Connolly Road, there's a road called Connolly Road.
Right.
So if you went from Connolly Road all the way to Middlesex Turnpike, you could probably widen the road and have multiple turning pockets,
Yes.
Gotcha.
essentially, am I right?
Well, this is like a three lane, like
exactly.
one gravel, and then center kind of two-way turning is where it probably is.
Right, I mean,
Yeah.
you're gonna get, we've all done it, you're gonna get, like, when people turn left on Connolly Road, you're going right into the shoulder. So when you go to Bochum Road, you're going to the shoulder, when it transfers it, you're going in the shoulder. When you people turning left onto Route 9 North, you're going in the shoulder, you know, not as much there. So there's a lot of that going on in that stretch, a lot.
And I don't think people expect pedestrians or people on bikes in that area.
No.
Bikes, not pedestrian, definitely not
Yeah,
pedestrian.
definitely. You see them every once in a while, but
Yeah.
not commonly at all.
Yeah.
No.
But
Cyclists,
yes,
And is there a new development? Did I hear coming somewhere south of? But we had talked about,
We talked about the Point House
oh,
parcels, everything, there's a lot of land up for sale for future
or it's
development.
for sale.
But there's the 125 acres or 17, there's other. That,
what you'll get there is, nothing that would impact, you're not gonna get hundreds of houses, I think you'll probably get 10.
Okay, that's good to know.
but if we get retail or, you know, some kind of a high generating
I think-
restaurant or something,
Speculative at this point, though, more than anything.
we're
else.
just kind of thinking overall.
Yeah,
Well, no, it's good to know. I mean, if there's a lot of new development, because that could definitely impact the potential for having that center running turn lane. You know, those sorts of things we need to be thinking about.
I don't, guess there's gonna be a lot of new development,
Okay.
maybe. Yeah.
All right, great. So, I'll go back to the presentation really quickly, to just say, we do have a virtual public meeting that's going to be specifically about the action plan. It's going to be a regional meeting. That's why we're doing it virtually, so everyone can call in from all over, on November 12th, at 6 p.m.
Like herding cats at a meeting like that.
It's definitely challenging, yeah, for sure. But so we'll be kind of talking about the action plan and some of the goals, and accepting some more public comment. But we're looking to integrate your feedback, into this, and so I'll provide, our contact information, Rob's and mine. So if you have any additional thoughts kind of following this meeting, it's here. You can also reach us via the RiverCog website.
Can I ask a question? So I thought, and you don't have to go back to the presentation. But at some point you had a 10-foot wide shared biking walkway, right? Why would you have on Route 154 going towards Middlesex Turnpike? I thought you talked about essential for a bike lane and a separate pedestrian sidewalk. Did you or not?
So the VFW highway, what we're proposing is a 10-foot multi-use path on the
Right.
northerly side.
Okay,
On 154, since there's destinations on both sides of the road, we have a buffered bike lane and then a sidewalk.
why wouldn't you share those? Why would you?
Create a shared one.
Yeah,
It's something that we could definitely consider.
I'm no expert, I'm asking why.
The question, the answer is a number of access points. So you generally don't want to have a bi-directional multi-use path in a location where vehicles are kind of turning out at great frequency. So if there's a lot of different access points on a roadway, generally speaking, I'm sure many of you know this better than I do, if you have a lot of access points on the roadway, there's just a lot more potential conflict.
Okay, very good, thank you, yeah.
But certainly, you know, one of the things that we floated at one point was thinking about the bike lane, a combined bike lane and pedestrian path here. It would be quite a bit more robust on the infrastructure side of things. It would look a little bit more like this, probably, have one on each side of the street, so it just expands the amount of space that you really need. So we ended up going with the buffered bike lane here, but this is something that when we talk about further iterations of design, would be fleshed out further.
When you say a buffered bike lane, is there like a buffer between the road? So there's the road, a buffer, then the bike lane, so the cars can't.
And then maybe a buffer and then maybe a sidewalk,
That's what I was asking. Yeah, I was trying to understand that. I've seen those before.
which just seems like a lot of land.
Yeah.
It's a lot of land,
And how do you clear that when it snows?
when it snows, right? So it was actually the snow issue that I think we ultimately decided to keep it at the same level as the bike lane, the same level as the
Okay.
roadway. And then you have here, if you can see it from, so this is a painted buffer, in some jurisdictions, usually in more densely developed areas. You can have, a concrete buffer. That would require a special plow for the bike lane for an instance of snow. So this is why we have it painted here. And then we have, I think it's a I didn't put the specs on here, but usually 2 to 4 foot amenity zone here, which can also serve as a snow shelf.
Right,
Right.
interesting.
All right, well, so thanks, everyone, and let you get on with the meeting, but again, feel free to reach out. My email is right here. But happy to answer any additional questions.
Is there anyone online who has comments? I know we kind of just raise your hand.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome to stick around if you want to have a meeting, but you're also welcome to
Thanks, Rob.
take on as well. All right, so typically at our land use meetings, this is an opportunity for the different boards and commissions to give updates. So I don't know if we just want to go around the table and have the chairman, each commission or representative of each commission, if there's no chairman present, to give a discussion. If you're on there's several committees, zoning, Mariners Way Committee, wetlands. So just take this as an opportunity. I don't know where we want to start. Yeah, okay, all right.
I'll start, from a zoning perspective, just a couple of updates and a question, but, we're really in an application lull right now. We have several, special exceptions, that we're anticipating, to come forth, and we're still waiting on the Whole Foods, project, which has been stalled now for quite some time. We really don't know where that stands, but as a result of that, it's gonna give us the opportunity in the next, number of meetings to, work on regulation fixes in the zoning, regulations that we've identified. And we have a fairly long list of that, to accomplish in the coming couple months. And then, the only other, comment I wanted to make is that regarding the housing task force and, Mariners Way, if they could keep the zoning commission, as a participant and, keep us, abreast of what's going on so that we can work together as we view our regulations, and possibly have to make fixes or adaptations to them, for the betterment of those projects. That's all I have.
Nope, I'll go next. So, planning and housing task force, basically, we spent most of this year educating ourselves on different aspects of housing and why there isn't an abundance of it. And right now, we've identified key learnings from that, and we're gonna incorporate that into the current affordable housing plan and turn that into a housing plan, not focusing on just affordable housing, but on all types of housing throughout the town. So we are.
Chuck, anything?
No, there's really nothing with ZBA. We're just trying to learn to work with the Gateway community, with Gateway. And they become a little more restrictive. And since we're the zoning board of appeals, we have to look at the totality of what we're trying to approve. And in some ways, Gateway is very rigid, just like zoning. But we, as you know, we're being sued by Gateway for one property that I thought we did a really good job on making modifications to it to accommodate their needs and the town's needs. So, and I had a very nice conversation with Gateway when we had they had a riverboat tour. And I met with many of the individuals on Gateway, and I tried to express to them what the zoning board of appeals does and how we look at a property and how but not that we're ignoring their requirements, but how we have to interpret theirs and then look at the properties and see how we can reduce nonconformities and make the properties more compliant. But that's one thing.
So the first sea level rise report issued in 2015 had a recommendation for the beach associations to get involved. And I meet with the 11 beach associations who meet as a group. We meet monthly, and it's a very active group, very engaged. Another thing the planning commission is responsible for is a natural hazard mitigation plan. I think we do that every 5 years, and that has a list of projects. So we have the list of projects the beach associations want to do. We have the list of projects, the town wants to do, and we have the natural hazard mitigation plan. So we put them all in a spreadsheet. And the beach associations now are getting estimates and potentially lining up contractors so as grants become available, coordinating with Chris, we make a decision, okay, which project is the high priority, what should we go after? And some of these are fuzzy, like seawalls. They're old seawalls. Who's responsible for that? Is it the state? Is it the town? Is it the beach association? So anyways, I just want to make this team aware of, we're trying to compile this, I'll call it a living spreadsheet that's prioritized, and we're trying to put dollar amounts in it. And potentially if the finances of the town have funds available or there's grants available, we can go right to this pick list and chip away. So I appreciate all, that I appreciate, and the beach associations appreciate all that Chris does and the town support. I know we put money in the resiliency fund a little bit last year, more this year, and that's important. We keep that going. It is very high visibility out in the beach associations, and it's appreciated.
So I'm just gonna, Doug has been great, as kind of a resiliency liaison to a number of different projects, including the 11 beach associations. Just some updates, the hazard mitigation plan, we did, which is the planning commission, we did receive more comments. We sent back more comments. They gave us more comments. We're sending back more comments. That's with Fenwick, so it's going slow. I was a little bit concerned with the government shutdown, our Chucker Chapman project. That's the $500,000 study between Chapman and Indiantown. That one we stalled a little bit with the co-op, which is the quality assurance plan, but miraculously, I didn't think it was going to happen, but we did get the approval from during the shutdown, so we're going to start moving with that one full steam ahead. So, and the other one is one of the projects that we did work on, was the Back River Resiliency Plan, which is 60%.
60% design complete.
Design complete, so I'm working with one of our grant writers, or I'm gonna write a grant, to get money for a grant to pay our grant writer to go after the remaining 40%. So there's a lot of grant things going on, but I'm a little bit concerned this money's drying up. So might as well try as much as we can to, get this money as it is available.
I'll give an update on two pieces of property.
Sure.
That might involve our land use agencies. David Brown's property. Many of you may know that the town, when David Brown was essentially, I think, given the property. I don't know if he bought it for a reduced price or it was given to him, but it was given to him in fee. And he, if he ever sold it or upon his death, the town would have an option to purchase. It's not, doesn't read as a right of first refusal. It's an option to purchase for a fixed fee of $96,000. That's 12 acres. So I've notified the probate court, I've notified they found the will a year and a half into that intestate estate. It is now intestate estate. And I put a notice into the file saying that the town wants to be at every hearing and we're going to be notified of every hearing. And we intend to exercise the option. So how that plays out, I'm not making any predictions as to what will happen to that property, what will happen to the stupa, what will happen to the hay house, and we're not looking to bulldoze it and build housing, okay? There's no plan right now. We have an option on 12 acres of pretty important land that is a gateway into our open space.
Right.
1,200 acres of it, between Great Cedars and the preserve. And not only that, it would give us excellent access for a park and rec facility in Rockview Lake. I don't know how many of you are familiar with Rockview Lake, but I've been told stories over the years from Barbara Maynard and Mike Cronin that there's great fishing, and I've never seen it.
It's beautiful.
The access is very difficult though. This could provide access to a recreational area that's pristine by all accounts. So the will has left the property to a Tibetan society. However, we have right of first option on the land, so I've notified them of that. I'm not looking to fight Tibetans, just so everybody knows. I'm not looking to get into that. I think there could be some coexistence. And that those are preliminary thoughts on that, okay? So that is active at the moment. I can't imagine that estate will go on much longer. Hopefully it'll be settled in the next 4 to 6 months. The other one is the Dock and Dine property. So we've been going back and forth and back and forth and back and forth on a purchase and lease agreement, whether you're in favor of it or not. This will go to the public for referendum. So I'm not sitting here telling you it's a done deal. But before we go to a referendum, everybody should know the details of what's in the lease and what's in the purchase and sale agreement. And that will be up to the public to decide whether we want to move forward or not. But in the lease agreement, one of the things we're arguing over, there's several things. One of them was a right of first refusal. So in the latest iteration of these documents, which is probably the 7th it's crazy. And they said, okay, you can have a right of first refusal, but you need to close within 30 days. And I said, impractical in government. Impractical. So that needs to be a reasonable period of time. One of the other items is if we end up owning this property, the Duffy Pavilion, which would be a restaurant, would like to have some control over what happens on what is currently the Dock and Dine property. To which my response is, if we own the property, there will be no controls on it. And not only because I'm here for the next 2 years, but for the first select person 25 years from now. who's gonna say what a stupid deal was negotiated. And some of it is like, if there's more than 50 people, there can be no food or alcohol unless it's served by the dock and dine owner. And I'm like, that's not happening. So, oh, and we have to have a parking plan. So in other words, if we plan on having an event, and by the way, this is gonna be a passive park. Zoning will probably decide whether we get to have events there. And the North Cove neighbors and other neighbors are gonna say no, I mean, not no, but limit. And that's probably the way it should be. But if you have if you're expecting more than 50 people, then you have to provide a parking plan with a bus to the like busing people in as opposed to the shared parking concept that is more appropriate. And there's lots of parking, and there will be, and it should be shared, period. So there are some, and I've sent this back to them like 5 times, and okay, I think we have a deal, and they send it back, and it's like Groundhog Day. And I'm not kidding when I say that. It's like, did we not just talk about this? So just so everybody knows, literally today, we sent back a version saying, these are the terms we can agree to. Are we in agreement or not? And this is literally, I'm gonna tell you, it's 5 or 6 times we've sent something back. So that's on those 2. I know people ask about those properties all the time. I'm hopeful that we will get to a point where we put this before the public. I'm hopeful. We'll see over the next few months. And by the way, even if it gets before the public and referendum, Park and Rec books 6 months out.
Right.
So they've lost next summer.
Right.
The Park and Rec is booking 6 months out. By the time this ever got to a book, we'd be in the winter. They've lost next summer already. So that's what's going on there. I don't know if there's any other questions on anything else that's going on, but we'll let everybody go home back here. Thank you all for coming out. Thank you for your everybody here is a volunteer. Thank you for what you do.
I don't know if any of the other committees, like Mariners Way
Oh.
or Wetlands or the region, I don't, it's been a long night, but.
I'm on Mariners Way, we're getting rolling with Jennifer here. Mark, I heard your comment, so I'll take that back to the chair, Bruce Carlson. But we're getting some momentum, but we need to meet with Carl and before, I don't have anything material to report out on.
Jennifer, you have any events you want to announce? This is Jennifer's the event.
Actually, so just a recap for economic development really quick. We have been focused on the downtown the last few years. Really trying to promote that, in the wake of COVID. We have been very successful with that from a marketing and events perspective. We're about to pivot to a little more business focused perspective where we overlap with all of you more. So it's with infrastructure for safety, character of the town, wayfinding, connection to TOD. So those are all things that we're keeping an eye on, to make sure that all of our interests dovetail. But as far as the fun part, this weekend, we are debuting a new Main Street piano in front of Fred Astaire. So for anyone who has an hour on Friday night from 5 to 6 and would like to come for some live entertainment, a little light refreshments, we will be gathering on Main Street to do that. So you're welcome to join us before you go out for the rest of the evening.
Just quickly, with the marketing and everything, with the focus on Main Street, we put aside some ARPA dollars to market the town, built on some marketing dollars that had been appropriated by the Board of Finance a few years ago. And Jennifer, we're in a meeting, Jennifer and I were in a meeting with several members of the new Main Street Activities Business Association.
Main Street Business Events
Association. And this is, how do you quantify whether you're successful marketing in the town? How do you do that? I don't know. I mean, businesses come and go, but these two ladies, Maximus and the.
Cottage Flare.
What?
Cottage Flare.
Cottage Flare. We're just like, we don't know what it is, but we were way up this year. Business was up. And the anecdotal evidence is as good as anything, right? And so I'd like to think that building the brand and doing the marketing actually pays off, so.
And actually, we had some really interesting feedback from our marketing company the other night at our meeting. Where she basically did a search and she said, where should I go for fall on the shoreline? Old Saybrook came up third in the search. Where should I go if I want an alternative to the crowds in Mystic? Old Saybrook came up first in the search. These are things that we have been targeting. And if you start to look for that as a visitor, we come right up. So that shows that our targeting is working.
Great.
That's.
Anyone else? Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us. We have some refreshments for those of you who are here. Thank you, everybody, virtually.